Okay, now we are in video number 2, setting up the conic tire. So we left off the last video with this. I've now removed the skirts and re-exported it. So the next step is to start the blueprint. So in order to start the blueprint, it's good if we just cover one thing first. Is you see vehicles, this is where the old vehicles were, and there is vehicles N. This is all the folder where we are going to put all the new vehicles. So every time we complete a vehicle here, we go back in here and we delete the old vehicles from that old place. Like for instance, this is the old system with many blueprints and the materials are still there. So while I'm going to port everything to the new folder, I'm going to move some of those assets over to the new folder, and ultimately all of this will be deleted, including the folder. So let's go into vehicle N and axis. Before we go into axis, I'm going to go into common just to cover a few base things. So everything now is linked to bases, and what it means is there is like a parent blueprint, and if we need to change something to the entire game, we just edit the parent and all the children should get that new value, and everything is going to be around bases. So we have base components, we have base cosmetic, we have base periscopes, and everything call always the same thing, and there is a lot less duplicates than there used to be in the old system, which makes everything a lot more efficient. So I'm going in axis and I'm going to bring a second content browser, and I'm going to just dock in here. There we go. Okay, will make copy pasting a lot easier. So I am going to work on the Panther 6 King Tiger, and the Tiger E that we've rigged a few weeks ago is very similar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off that Tiger. It's fairly similar, same number of seats. It also have a coax. It have a 360-degree rotation turret. We have a coax here, the bow gunner. We have a commander that can turn out into a hatch that goes up and then rotates. So yeah, because it is so similar to a King Tiger, this is going to be our base. So let's go into postscriptum, vehicle, new, axis, Tiger. So this is the final how your folder should look when everything is completed. You should have an animation folder if you need custom animation. There is a blueprint, data asset, materials, projectiles, skeleton, sound, static, and textures. So let's go back into our King Tiger. The King Tiger at the moment, I'm only having skeleton and statics. The skeleton was exported by the rigger and imported into Unreal Engine. Following the import, I also have my physical assets and my skeleton. And I also have all of my statics, like we've seen in a previous video. We have the external components, we have some hatches, all the internal components, we have the turret ring as well, we have some FX meshes all the way to here. We have some gear that is going to be attached to the tank, some more hatches, some armor mesh to check the penetration and defining the value of the metal. And we have some dead tracks, some dead turrets, and some track seg. The track seg again is the one that goes all around the track. So this is our base. So now I need a blueprint folder. And in that blueprint folder, I am going to need, ooh, there's this. Let me fix it up. I hate redirectors, so if I see one, I have to fix it right away. Shouldn't take long. There we go. Okay, so now we said that we want to work off something similar. So I'm going to copy it. I'm not going to make a child because this is not the same tank, but it's just a copy. Okay, so I'm going to rename this Panther 6. Let's try not to make any mistakes in the German name. Königs Tiger. That should be all right. Okay. So here we're going to refer to our technical checklist again. So vehicle and component, that is the first thing we're going to do. So we've created a folder following the naming convention. We've created a blueprint that is called not Sherman, but it is now called Koenigsegger, using the PSVF medium or heavy as a starting point. So what that is if I open Visualigai, it says BP PSVF heavy tank. So we are referencing the heavy tank as the parent tank. So it is going to behave like a heavy tank. Okay. Then plug the skeleton in the BP. So okay, let's get to work. So I'm going to drag and drop my Koenigsegger, well, future Koenigsegger. In the mesh, I am going to plug my skeleton. Okay, so now it looks like a Koenigsegger. Still have the wrong assets, but we're getting close. And then create an anim blueprint for the skeleton. So that one, I will go into my skeleton, right click, create anim blueprint. Keep the default name, is fine. I'm gonna add it to source control. And here I want to reparent this guy because by default I'm plugged to anim instance. I am going to reparent this little guy to PSVF anim instance tank. Save. Add the newly created AnimBP to the skeleton inside the vehicle BP. So I'm going to select this guy and I'm going to plug it right here. Okay, now we're done. Now it's time to add all the internal and external components. So that one is fairly quick. It is basically all the assets are going to be on top of the tank as well as inside of the tank. So turret ring, it's actually easier if I go in order from top to bottom so I don't forget anything. Chassis collision. Okay, chassis collision. Chassis here, make sure it's the exterior and not the interior. Okay. This mesh is by default, well, not by default, but I've made it invisible, but we can make sure it is correct. If we go in render, visible, it should overlay perfectly the other mesh because it's the same. So yeah, that is my armor. I'm just gonna untick this little guy. Then the interior mesh. Okay, then my turret collision. Exterior, yes, here. And then I have my interior mesh here. Okay, now the driver entry. Where do I go when I want to get in the tank? It's around here. The hull gunner is around here. Commander right here, perfect. The gunner exit. So when the gunner gets off the tank, is going to most likely be on the left side. So around here. Then we have the hull gunner exit. It's going to be on the right side. The driver exit here. Commander exit, fairly similar as the gunner. Cannon collision. Here, okay. Then the ammo rack. So here is where you have to check online for references on where the ammo racks are. We'll keep that for later. I'm just going to keep a few racks for now. I'm just going to say only 2. I will fix that later when I get my data. Then where is the engine? So sometimes the engine has a custom shape like this, and sometimes it's just a box or whatever the shape is. It's for realism, it's good to have a shape that is as close as the real one. So if you do, then you would have an engine component, but as I can see in my static folder, I don't have an engine provided by the modeler. So I'm going to assume it is the default one like this. So the engine, I would imagine, is right here. We'll have some radiators, and yeah, that would be, oops, shit. I guess it's just going to be something like this. Again, you need to check with online references. Then the fuel tank right, fuel tank left. For me, it's a single fuel tank, so I'm going to delete one of the 2. And remember, this guy fuel tank, and I'm going to plug in my custom mesh here. Okay, so that would be 0. I guess I'm gonna have to rotate it 90 degrees. Oh, actually 0 degrees, okay. So the fuel tank would be, I imagine, wrapping the engine. Let's see if it doesn't pop out. It is. Okay, so that would be the engine bay. So I guess you have to rotate, in real life you would have to rotate 90 degrees the turret so you can actually open that hatch. Anyway, let's move on. Fuel tank, engine, transmission. I have a custom mesh. I'm going to use my custom mesh. Guess it's going to be around, let's see. Again, right now I'm eyeballing everything. I will spend some more time later on to place them correctly. The cannon mesh, this guy, cannon, and it should be linked to bone cannon elevation here, and 0, 0, 0. And if it's done properly, it should perfectly line up like this and go also inside the turret. The only issue I see is here it goes through the muzzle brake, so I would suggest to, in this case I would suggest the modeler, hey, can you cut the cannon around here and just keep that part and get rid of that part. So that is a comment I will make to the modeler. Then we have the turret ring. I'm going to use my turret ring mesh, and it needs to be linked to bone turret traverse and 0. So now that is my turret ring properly set. Okay, now we have to work on the views. So this is the periscope mesh, and I'm going to link it to, because, oh no, on this one the periscope is not fixed to the hatch. Sometimes it's fixed to the hatch, so you have to link it to the hatch bone so it rotates with it. But in this case the periscope is literally on the chassis, so it's going to be easy to place. I'm just going to set everything to 1. Okay. So this mesh is only for the periscope destruction. Going to scale it down. Squeeze it a little bit like this. I imagine the periscope is kind of that big, maybe a bit wider. Okay. And then this isn't the vision slit, this is a periscope. Then we have the hull gunner, slightly rotated. So let's get it. So it's going to be periscope component hull gunner. It's not linked to a bone, it's straight on the chassis. Okay, let's bring it up. I'm going to copy paste the scale values. Copy, paste. Rotate it a tiny bit so it's close. Okay. So now if you get a shot into this, you're going to crack the periscope. Okay, vision slit component commander. So this one is linked to the bone turret traverse, which is good. So that means when the turret rotates, this periscope or this cupola is going to rotate with it. Just going to place it. I don't know if this mesh is gonna fit. Oh yeah, it might fit. Nice. That's good. I don't even need another mesh. I'm going to keep the one from the Tiger. It's very similar. Push it slightly down. Yeah, that's good enough. Okay, let's move on. PSVF external component. So the external component is everything that is attached to the tank that can be shot out. So this one is, oh yeah, that's the old track. On the Tiger, we have like a rack of track here. I don't need this. However, yes, there is some tracks that are attached to the turret. So I'm going to link mine. It's supposed to be track, I guess. So that would be the left side, link, and it's connected to the turret bone, and I'm just going to set its transform value of 0, and that should snap right into position. So let's rename this. I'm going to call this turret track left. Yeah, so it's easy to remember. Then I'm going to have turret track right, 0 animation, this guy, and that should snap right into place, and it's the correct socket, so when my turret rotates, this comes with it. Then we have some gear. Oh yeah, we used to have like a jack in the back, which we don't have on this guy. Then we used to have shovels, so what I'm going to do, this is linked to nothing, so that means it's going to move with the chassis. I am going to plug in, should have some gear. Where is the gear? Here, gear left. So this is gear left, plugging the static. There we go. So in this case, it was at 0 world position. The pivot point wasn't centered. That is still okay. Then I'm going to have gear right. Plug it in. Oop. World position 0. Nice. Then we have the track spline that tells us for the wheel. That is going to be in the next video. We will not worry about this for right now. So let's keep moving. Then we have the view driver. So on the Tiger, that's the default view, the one with that mesh. We do not have that view for the King Tiger. So the King Tiger is going to be a periscope view and a turnout view. That's all there is, unless there's a side view, but I don't see any. Yeah, so this guy is just going to be a periscope view. View driver periscope, yes, that's the one I want. I'm going to move this slightly here. I'm going to move it a tiny bit forward so we don't have, yeah, so the camera is going to clip through. So I'm just going to move this little guy here. So now we should not see that because the camera is going to be like this. And the good thing is now you can still see a bit of your own tank if you look up and down. So that's my driver view, hull gunner view. I'm going to make it here. In real life, it seems like it's tiny bit of an angle, so let's go realistic. Okay, so now my hull gunner is going to, yep, nice, like this. Yeah, so the camera shouldn't clip with this. We'll do that in QA. So that's now what my hull gunner is going to see. Gunner periscope. Is there a gunner periscope? No, there is no gunner periscope on this tank. So I imagine the gunner would be here. So I think the gunner has nothing. I mean, that would be the loader. So no periscope for the gunner. He's only going to have his own sight. Maybe we can have like a vision port here, like you can see through. I know some tanks used to have that. Let's move on. Commander cupola. It's here. And it should be linked to the turret. Yes, it is. Let's move on. Let's try to align those views so they match what is there. I'm just going to push it down as much as I can. So when you're in this view, in the cupola view, the bone of the commander is invisible, so you should not see this. So we should be all right. So I'm going to push it as down as I can without seeing anything from the tank. Yeah, that will do just fine. So that way when I'm here, I can actually see my own tank. Okay, and the vision slit component gunner. What was that? Oh yes, that's the periscope. So there is no periscope, so it cannot be cracked. Okay, now we have the skirts. Skirt should be fairly quick to set up. Ooh, they weren't exported yet. So we will keep the skirt for the next video. So it would be the same. I'm going to export them. I only have the effects. So this was not exported by the modeler. So you should have like right 1, right 2, right 3, right 4, and then you should have to put them in the right location. So this will be done for the next video. Let's move on. Let's imagine that this is correct. And then we have the left track component that I have. Okay, that should overlay my wheels. It should be a clean value. I think that was maybe 65. Let's see what is the proper value for this. So it was 5, yes, and maybe 70 here. Nah, maybe not. Okay, let's go with 68 for now. Okay, we do the same thing on this side. We're plugging the left track, but this time we put a -1 in the y-axis. There we go. And here we set 5, 140, and 68. Yes. Okay, let's the 3D tracks here you can see they are wrong. That is for the next video. Okay, so now I've set the base of my blueprint. And I've set my components. So I'm going to scratch components, scratch BP. Next step is the physical assets, because if I play in the editor, this guy is not going to react to physic. So let's save this. Skeleton physical asset. By default, the one that is generated is very, very wrong, as you can see. So you would select everything in here, press delete, and we are going to do it fresh. So let's have a look at the Sherman or the Tiger. Let's see how that was made for the other tanks. So you see it's a basic box. This one is used to generate the physics of the vehicle. And let's have a quick look at the Sherman. Again, very basic shape. So let's do something similar for this guy. I'm going to go in the root, add a box, move it up, scale it up. Again, this is not something that you need to be extremely precise. It's just a rough shape. Let's go into front view. Bottom of the chassis would be around here. Okay, let's go in top view. Okay. Duplicate. Make a little smaller. Okay, let's look at the perspective. Make this smaller, something around this. For the front, I recommend you use not a box, but capsule. Capsules, apparently I've been told that they react better to collision than boxes. So if you hit something, that should make it a little more forgiving. At least it should. Okay, something around that. What I like to do is I also like to duplicate this guy and use it at the rear. Something along those lines should be just fine. Yeah. Then a box for the turret. Add a shape box. really big turret like this. Okay. And the next one, this one is actually important, is in bone cannon elevation. You are going to make a capsule, rotate it 90 degrees, scale it up. Something along those lines. And do not forget, this one is very important, is you set this to kinematic and you untick collision response. If you don't untick collision response when you are going to rotate the turret, this capsule is going to hit the box and you will go into space. So do not forget kinematic collision response. Save this. Okay. So this was my physical asset. So let's go back to our checklist. We set the turret, we set this. Mesh should perfectly align. If they're not, send it back to the modeler. Set collision, So this, we haven't done it because we've started from an already made vehicle. So all the profiles are correct. But do not forget, if you use on the Armour mesh, like any of those, in collision, it should be complex vehicle mesh, the preset, and those two should be unchecked. Very important, those two. That is very expensive. Okay, let's move on. Add all components. So yes, we added the transmission, cannon, right tank, track, blah blah blah. Periscopes, yes. Add the correct icon in the vehicle BP. Okay, so this one is fairly easy. At the very bottom, we have SQ map icon. It's a map tank heavy, so this one is already correct because we started from a similar tank. If not, you just press that little magnifying glass, and here you have all the vehicle types we have in PS. Okay, so this was done. Set the see-through materials in the vehicle BP. So okay, let's do that now. The see-through is what we use. It's here in default. It is what we use when we go into debug view to get the wireframe. So to set this properly, we have to go into the skeleton and we have to, oh shit, wrong window, yes. We have to set the proper element to either use a transparent or a wireframe. So let's see, we want this object to be wireframe, so 0 is going to be wireframe. Just gonna, hold on, just gonna change the order. 0, 1, 2. Oh yes, because it was 0 here. Okay, hold on, I know my mistake. 3, 2, 0. If I do, yes. Cannot. Oh, I think it's because there is a 0 here. If there is a 0, yeah, thank you, Unreal Engine. Okay, so we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so now we have 4. I'm gonna make another number, just placeholder. So yeah, if there is a 0, you can't add another one. I'm gonna set to, we'll reorder this in a second. Okay, so we have 0 to 6, 0, 1, 1, 2, 3. Come on. Ah, yeah. 3, 4, 5. Okay, it's a bit not in the right order, but you get the concept. Okay, so 0 is going to be a wireframe. This is going to be a wireframe as well. True black, this is going to be invisible. So this is 3, invisible. Then 4 is 2D track, so 4 is going to be invisible as well. 5 is the other side, so this is also going to be invisible. And this, what is that? Oh yes, that's the decal. There is the decal number, and for the time being, we're going to set it to invisible here. Okay, so 6 is also going to be invisible. Yes, so 0, 1, 2 is wireframe 0, 1, 2, and everything else is invisible. Okay, so let's move on. So we have done the collisions, we have done the components, we have done the physical assets, and now we need to do the material indexes. So the material index, this one is a common mistake we've seen in the dev team, and we often forget about it. It is in tracks component. It is with what is the ID of the 2D track. So basically this object here and this object here, they are invisible up close, and as you get away from the tank, then they become visible, and the 3D tracks are being replaced by the 2D tracks. So you have to define who is the left track, right track, and who is the left track. So left is 5, right is 4. So let's go back. It is here. So we said left is 5, right is 4. Let's just confirm, because I think I've just brain farted and I want to be sure. Left is 5. Okay, let's see. Left is 5. Okay, correct. So that should be everything we need to at least give it a first try. So I'm going to simulate in the editor. Okay, so I don't know what happened there. I'm gonna have to investigate. But now we see that our tank is in the world. If I move it up, the gravity is working, and it could be an effects, like the smoke effects from the wheel. But yeah, my tank is working. The view is shaking. I have all the proper views. Okay, so that is it for video number 2. In video number 3, we will cover the seats and all the views. I'll see you there.